My, oh my. Good day. Welcome to Moments with Dr. Steve. I'm Dr. Steve Bonneberger, and on this day, I start each and every week with a biblical wisdom teaching for all of us. And we're plowing and pressing through the Gospel of John. I once considered myself something of a subject matter expert on the Gospel of John and all Johannine literature because I have studied it deeply and widely and traveled up a lot of streams looking for sources and origins. I've done that. And as I was beginning today's lesson study, I thought to myself about how I got introduced to the Gospel of John. There was this man, and I'll not tell you his name, but I remember him greatly. And he was the very first Sunday school teacher that I ever had. And in the olden days, there would be these pocket-sized copies of the Gospel of John that would be handed out. And I had never seen one of those before, of course. And this gentleman handed me that little pocket-sized version printing of the Gospel of John. And I remember reading that hundreds and hundreds of times until it was worn out. And so as I started to think about today's lesson, I thought about how small beginnings create great outcomes. Small beginnings create great outcomes. And maybe for you, I'm going to be that person in your life where I'm handing you these great truths, these nuggets of wisdom from the Gospel of John. And maybe it is that God's going to open up this stream of information to you and this stream of inspiration for you that's going to carry you to the discovery of your true purpose in God. So lesson 4 that we are plowing into today reminds us that God sends people. God sent that man into my life. I didn't know him before that moment, and I certainly had no idea that what he was doing in that small act of generosity and kindness would turn out to be such a benefit in my own life. And that's the prayer for you. God sends people. There was a man sent from God. There was a man sent from God. Think about that. I'm a man sent from God into your life. His name was John. My name is Dr. Steve. Such a simple construct. Such a simple thought, such a profound and impactful bound declaration. Let's unpack. There was a man sent from God. God is a sending God. And the word from which we derive that word is apostle, one who is appointed, ordained, and one who is intentionally and deliberately set aside and then thrust into the maelstream by God. Think of your own life. Think of where you land on this day. Think through what is going on in your world. And then imagine yourself as this person that God sends to others. I'm telling you, the minute you start to think this way, the minute you realize that this is reality, in fact, God starts sending people into your life for you to care for. One who is intentionally and deliberately set aside and thus properly placed by God. Think of that. Think how hard that is. Think about what it takes for God to maneuver human beings in such a way that some are in calamity and some are in crisis and some are facing immense criticism and some are outcast and some are outliers. And then God sends someone that is a replacer, a comforter, a welcomer, a reclaimer, a stand-asider. Think of that. Think of the complexity of how God sends people and how God has particular and specific missions for the healers that he sends. There is this sense, there is this divine and otherworldly element to God's sending. There is this intervention and break and schism in human history, and our human histories rather, that are elemental to this story. There is this divine orchestration and this moving and shifting of chess pieces, which are human beings and circumstances and settings that come under this big tent idea of God sends. Wow, that's power. Start to get your mind around that. Build a life. Takeaways. God ordains lives for service. That's happening to you right now. God missions a life. God sends and ordains each life for a particular mission. Our mission, as completed, has both intended and unintended consequences. Think of that man that handed me a simple copy of a pocket-sized Gospel of John. He had no idea what that would do in my life and in the kingdom's life. This sense of God's directive has to linger and hover round about us. There's an aura here. There's a nimbus. It's a cloud of witnesses. Start to think of that on this day. Till next time, I'm Dr. Steve Bonenberger. This is Moments with Dr. Steve. If you want to find out more, go to saintallegius.org. saintallegius.org. Travel far.